I moved to Dayton in late October. The leaves were already dead before they hit the ground, and the streets felt emptier than they should have. I wasn't running from anything, exactly. I'd just worn out my welcome elsewhere. A breakup, followed by months of freelance drought in Chicago, pushed me out the door with a couple suitcases and my Nikon. Dayton was cheaper. That was enough. The duplex I rented was fine, beige walls, humming pipes, windows that barely locked. It sat across from a house that looked like no one had lived in it for years, but somehow the porch light never burned out. Every night, like clockwork, it flickered on around 6:45 p.m. I took Craigslist gigs to fill my days. Product shots, event photos, that kind of thing. It paid for groceries, and sometimes a little more if I edited fast. Most jobs were forgettable. Except one. It was posted around 2 a.m. on a Thursday morning. Title: Need photos of vintage items for online sale. Compensation: $150, cash same day. Details: 3 items. Bring your own camera. Come after dark. 12, Melrose Avenue. Back entrance. I clicked the address. It was 4 blocks from me. No phone number, no name, just the instructions and a promise of cash. It sounded sketchy, but I'd done stranger things for less money. That night, I packed my gear and walked over. The wind had picked up, rattling the branches. Melrose was a quieter street than mine, no kids' bikes on the lawns, no porch pumpkins. The houses looked washed out in the streetlight haze, like a neighborhood waiting to be sold off. The place was easy to find. 12 Melrose had chipping gray paint and a thin crack down its upper window. The porch light was out, unlike the others. I walked around back. There was a motion sensor lamp near the door that clicked on as I approached, buzzing faintly. I knocked. The door opened a few inches, slowly, as if pushed by a breeze. No creak, just silence. "Hello?" I called out. "Craigslist? I'm here for the photo job." A pause. Then, from deeper inside, a voice. "Come in. Items are in the front room." It didn't sound particularly warm or cold. Just practical. I stepped in and shut the door behind me. The air smelled faintly of lemon cleaner and something older, like mothballs or damp wood. The living room was lit by a single standing lamp, its shades slightly tilted. A wooden desk sat against one wall, an oil painting of a ship above it, and in the corner stood a tall mirror covered by a beige sheet. I sat up quickly, not wanting to linger. The desk was easy, a few detailed shots of the carved legs and drawers. The painting was generic, but well preserved. I took wide shots and some close-ups of the signature. The mirror was last. I hesitated. The sheet looked undisturbed, like it had been draped there for decades. Something about the shape underneath didn't sit right, it wasn't just rectangular. There was a slight curve, an unevenness that suggested it had warped over time. "You want this in the shots too?" I called out. The same voice answered, still out of view. "Yes. All of it." "Then you can go." I pulled the sheet down. The mirror was taller than I expected, maybe 6 feet, with a heavy, dark wooden frame. Intricate carvings wound around its edges, vines, leaves, something that might have been a serpent, or just the wood's pattern. The glass wasn't cracked, but it was off. Like an old photograph, faintly tinted, a little too dim, even in direct light. I raised my camera and took a test shot. Looking through the lens, the reflection seemed sharper than with my eyes. Too sharp. I lowered the camera and checked the image. I was standing there, plain as day. But something about my expression was wrong. I wasn't smiling, but in the photo, I was. A small, subtle grin. Not exaggerated, just enough to be noticeable. I zoomed in. My mouth had shifted slightly upward, but the rest of my face remained neutral. It made my eyes look lifeless. I blinked and looked back at the mirror. My reflection stared back, expressionless. No smile. Normal. Probably a lighting glitch. I adjusted my camera, took a few more shots from different angles, and packed up. I'm done, I said, stepping toward the hallway. Where do I? A man stood just inside the shadows, at the far end. Not quite hidden, not quite visible. He wore a dark robe, or maybe it was just a long coat. His hands were in his pockets. His face was pale, lined. He looked like someone who hadn't slept in a week. He held out a folded envelope. I walked over, took it, nodded. Thanks. No reply. Just silence. I turned to leave. Behind me, the light dimmed. I didn't hear him follow. When I looked back once, the hallway was empty. I didn't sleep well that night. Not because of fear, at least, not exactly. It was something quieter, harder to define. A restlessness, like the kind you get after an unfinished conversation. I loaded the photos onto my laptop the next morning. Everything looked fine until I reached the mirror shots. Every photo had that same smile. Slight. Subtle. Not mine. But only in the mirror. The rest of me looked normal. It was just the reflection. Same faint smirk, same blank eyes. Over and over. I went back to the listing, thinking maybe I missed something. The post was gone. Deleted. I checked my inbox. The original email, if there ever was one, was missing too. I zoomed in on the last mirror photo, trying to find something to explain it. Dust, angle distortion, anything. In the bottom right corner of the mirror, just before the frame curled into shadow, there was a shape. Small. Almost human. And it was smiling wider than me. The next few days passed quietly. I finished editing the rest of the client photos and backed everything up. I didn't open the mirror shots again. Not out of fear, at least, that's what I told myself, but because they made me feel like I'd missed something important, and I couldn't afford distractions. I started getting headaches in the evenings. A dull throb above my eyes, like dehydration or eye strain, though I was drinking plenty of water. I blamed the screen time. By Sunday, the headaches were joined by a low buzzing. Not in my ears, but somewhere in the apartment. A soft, vibrating hum, like electronics running in another room. I unplugged everything. It didn't help. The sound wasn't steady. It pulsed, faint and slow, as if it was sinking to something. Breathing. Heartbeat. I wasn't sure. On Monday, I took my trash out around 10 p.m. The street was unusually quiet, not a car or footstep in earshot. As I turned the corner back to my porch, I stopped. A mirror stood against the side of the duplex. Tall. Carved. Familiar. My first thought was that someone had dumped it there. People did that all the time with mattresses, old couches. But as I stepped closer, the chill climbed my neck. It was the mirror. The same serpent-carved wood. The same faded glass. I didn't know how it got there. I had never taken it home. I stared at it for a long time. In the glass, my reflection stood still, but slightly off-center. As if I'd moved without noticing. I took a step left. The reflection didn't follow. It stood in place for another beat, then caught up. I left it there. I didn't want it in the house. I didn't even touch it. By morning, it was gone. That evening, I got a voicemail from an unknown number. It was only 3 seconds long. No words. Just a quiet sound, like someone breathing through cloth. I deleted it and turned off my phone for the night. Tuesday, I woke up with my bedroom door open. I live alone. I always lock it. The door creaked just slightly in the breeze from the cracked window. I checked the apartment. No signs of entry. Nothing stolen. Nothing moved, except for a small detail I almost missed. My camera. It had been in my bag on the shelf. Now it sat on my desk, powered off, lens cap removed. I turned it on. The most recent image was time-stamped 3:17 a.m. I was in bed at that time. The picture showed my living room. The lighting was strange, just the street light bleeding through the blinds. Everything looked slightly grainy, like a dream you only half remember. In the photo, the mirror was against the wall again. I blinked hard. My first instinct was to believe I was mistaken. Maybe the photo was old. Maybe the timestamp reset. Maybe I'd forgotten something. Sleepwalking, even. Anything logical. Anything at all. But then the reflection caught my eye. There was a man in the mirror. Not me. Someone else. He was standing where I should have been, looking directly at the camera. I zoomed in, trying to see details, but his face was blurred, like motion captured in stillness. He wore a coat. Long dark. His hands were in his pockets. Just like the man at 12 Melrose. I scrolled forward. No other photos after that. Nothing in video, either. But the file was untouched, same resolution, same settings I always use. It was real. Someone, or something, had used my camera. I told myself I needed sleep. Maybe fresh air. I walked around the block, grabbed coffee at a 24-hour diner, came home at dawn, and immediately locked every window. At noon, I called the number from the original Craigslist listing. I didn't expect an answer. But someone picked up after 2 rings. I said nothing. The voice was quiet, male, the same flat tone I remembered from the house. "You've already been here." Then the line went dead. I stood still for a long while. My apartment felt colder. Not in temperature, something else. Emptier, maybe. Off balance. I turned every mirror toward the wall. Bathroom. Hallway. The one in the closet. Even the small one on my key rack. Just glass, I told myself. Just reflection. That night, I dreamed of static. Not TV snow, more like the muffled white noise between stations on an old radio. In the dream, I was standing in front of the mirror again, only I wasn't moving. My body was, but not my will. I watched myself smile, then blink, then tilt my head just slightly out of sync with the rhythm of thought. I woke up sweating. The mirror was in my bedroom. It leaned against the far wall, same as ever. Same frame. Same warped glass. I stared into it. My reflection blinked first. I took it outside again, this time further. I dragged it down the alley 2 blocks, left it propped beside a dumpster. I didn't care who found it. I just wanted it gone. The next morning, I passed by the alley again. The mirror was gone. I felt relieved. Almost proud, like I'd closed a loop. Until I got home and saw the photograph in my email. No subject. No sender address. Just an image attachment. I hesitated, then opened it. The photo was of me, standing on my porch the night before, arms wrapped around the mirror. Smiling. I don't remember that moment. I don't remember carrying it. I know I dragged it. I zoomed in. My face looked normal at first glance. But in the eyes, just barely visible, there was something watching from behind the glass. Not a reflection. A presence. I deleted the email. I unplugged my computer. But that night, as I passed the hallway mirror I had turned to the wall, I caught a glimpse out of the corner of my eye. Not of myself. But of the man in the coat, standing behind me. It was Thursday when I finally decided to leave the apartment for more than coffee. I hadn't slept properly in days. My body ran on shallow naps and noise, every silence felt like a setup, every familiar sound slightly altered. The hum of the fridge seemed to pulse. The radiator clicked in patterns. I counted them at night. That helped, sometimes. I told myself I just needed movement, a shift in perspective. Maybe I was too coiled up inside that narrow space, staring at walls and shadowed corners, expecting something to happen. I took my camera and walked downtown. It was cloudy, not cold. People moved with their heads low, jackets half-zipped, earbuds in. Everyone minding their own lives. I found myself at a small antique store tucked between a laundromat and a pawnshop. I don't remember choosing it. I just drifted inside. A bell rang as the door closed behind me, soft and delayed, like it had trouble deciding if it wanted to make noise at all. The shop was narrow, cramped with stacked shelves and tall furniture. Dust hung in the air. The kind of place where clocks tick slightly out of sync. The owner didn't speak. Just nodded from behind a counter covered in yellowing postcards. I walked between aisles. My hands stayed in my coat pockets. I didn't want to touch anything. Halfway through the store, I saw it. A mirror. Smaller than the one from Melrose. Oval, with a wooden frame smoothed by age. Nothing ornate. Just plain, worn. Still, I froze. Not because of the mirror itself, but because I recognized the reflection. The same dim light. The same off-center image. My figure, standing with hands in pockets, head slightly tilted. I stepped to the side. The reflection followed a beat later. It lagged again. Like before. I leaned in. The glass was dusty, a faint web along the top corner. My breath fogged it slightly. But in the fog, something else appeared. A second face, just for a moment, over my shoulder. Eyes too far apart, mouth too straight. Then gone. I stepped back, heart drumming now. The owner was still behind the counter, unmoved. I walked out without buying anything. Back on the sidewalk, the clouds had thickened. It felt like evening, though it was only 3 p.m. I didn't go straight home. I wandered side streets, alleys I didn't recognize. Eventually, I stood in front of a rundown building with a rusted mailbox and a door painted black. The number on the mailbox, 12. Not Melrose. Different street. Different side of town. But the same number. I didn't remember walking there. I turned around. 3 houses down, a child stood on the sidewalk. He wasn't moving. Just watching me. Then he lifted his hand, not to wave, but to point. Not at me. At the window behind me. I didn't turn around. I just walked away. Fast. By the time I got home, the apartment felt colder. The hallway light flickered, only once, but I noticed. My door was locked. Deadbolt, too. Still, the air inside felt disturbed. Nothing out of place, no signs of entry. But the space itself had a different weight. The way an empty theater feels after a show ends, like something lingers even when it shouldn't. I made tea. Sat on the couch. Didn't turn on the TV. I left the laptop closed. I needed silence to sort my thoughts. To convince myself I was still in control of them. Then came the knock. 1. Just 1. I stood, waiting. No follow-up. No footsteps. Just stillness pressing against the door. When I finally looked through the peephole, no one was there. But on the doormat was a photograph. Black and white. Slightly curled at the corners. It showed me, standing in the hallway of my apartment, looking into a mirror. The same mirror. The original one. The reflection, though, was wrong. It was smiling. Not just the mouth, but the posture, the tilt of the head. The kind of smile people wear when they think they've won something. I hadn't taken that photo. I hadn't posed for it. I turned it over. No writing. Just a faint smudge, like a fingerprint dragged across old paper. That night, I didn't sleep. I didn't even sit down. I stayed by the window, watching the street below. Every time a car passed, its lights stretched across the living room wall like shadows trying to touch something. Around 4 a.m., I saw movement. In the mirror. I'd covered it days ago with a bedsheet, weighted down with books. Still, I saw it shift beneath the fabric. A slight bulge, as though someone inside was pressing back. I didn't remove the cover. Instead, I reached for the camera. I took one photo. Just one. Then I turned off every light in the apartment and sat in the dark until morning. When sunlight finally broke through, I checked the camera. The photo showed a reflection, not of me, but of someone sitting on the couch where I had been. Not moving. Not facing the camera. Just watching. The timestamp matched the moment I'd pressed the shutter. I looked up, slowly. The couch was empty. But the cushion was still indented. Like someone had only just stood up. I spent most of that morning in the kitchen, standing by the window without knowing why. There wasn't anything outside. Same street. Same stillness. The porch light across the road was blinking again, like it always did when the weather dipped. But this time, it flashed in a rhythm that seemed too deliberate. On. Off. On. Pause. Off. I counted them. Then I stopped. It didn't matter. I hadn't left the apartment since the photo on the doormat. It had disappeared by the next morning, just gone. I hadn't thrown it out, hadn't moved it. I stopped trying to make sense of the gaps. It didn't help. I didn't feel watched anymore. That part was over. Now it felt like I was being replaced. Not in some dramatic, sci-fi way. Not like a doppelganger with evil intentions. Just, gradually overwritten. Quietly erased. The laptop was open on the table. I hadn't touched it, but the screen glowed with a Craigslist draft page. It was already filled in. Title: Photographer needed, $150 cash. Location: back entrance only. Details: bring your own camera. Come after dark. There was an attached image, my front porch, taken from the street. My blinds were half drawn. My silhouette, faint but unmistakable, stood in the window. I deleted the draft. The screen flickered. It reappeared. Same content. Same photo. Same timestamp. I unplugged the router. The draft stayed. I turned off the computer entirely. Still, the next time I passed the hallway, the mirror cover had fallen. Books on the floor. Sheet bunched in the corner like something had pushed it off from the inside. I looked at the glass. This time, the reflection was me, but younger. Maybe by 5 years. Same eyes, but more alert. Lighter. He looked at me like I was the intruder. And then he moved. Not fast. Not sudden. He raised a hand. Tapped the inside of the glass. Once. And mouthed something. 3 words. I know what I saw, even if I couldn't hear it. You're almost gone. I stepped back, hand on the wall to steady myself. The reflection stayed still. Not hostile. Not mocking. Just waiting. That night, I stayed awake again. Not out of fear anymore, more like resignation. I didn't trust the hours when I slept. Time wasn't linear inside this place. Not anymore. I found myself going through old texts, old emails. Looking for proof that I still existed the way I remembered. But even those felt distant. The phrasing unfamiliar. Like someone writing in my voice. Around 3 a.m., I walked into the hallway and stood in front of the mirror again. I didn't cover it this time. I didn't look directly. I watched from the corner of my eye. The reflection watched back. I waited. At 3:11 exactly, the lights dimmed for a split second. Just like the flicker at Melrose. When they came back on, I was gone. In the reflection, I mean. There was nothing. Just an empty hallway. I turned, fast. I was still there. But the glass stayed blank. That terrified me in a way I didn't expect. Seeing nothing where I was supposed to be felt worse than seeing something else. It felt like erasure. I moved through the apartment trying to trigger the mirror, jumping, waving, blinking hard, but nothing appeared. The glass showed only what was behind me. Not me. I covered it again. Not to hide what I saw, but to keep from checking it again. I returned to the kitchen. The laptop was open again. Another Craigslist post. This one already published. Posted 1 minute ago. I clicked. It wasn't the usual format. Just a single image. The mirror. In my hallway. And in the reflection, me. But I was smiling. Calm. Peaceful. I looked more at ease than I had in months. Then I saw the posting ID, number 00000001. I hit back. Refreshed. Tried to remove the listing. A pop-up blocked the screen. Already accepted. I shut the laptop, not out of panic, but out of a strange, creeping clarity. Something had already filled my place. I checked my camera again. Last photo timestamped 10 minutes prior. It was me, outside the apartment, standing at the base of my porch steps, facing the door. From inside. Meaning, the photo had been taken from my window. By someone, in here. I replayed the timeline. No doors had opened. No footsteps. Just, the growing quiet. That was when I noticed the faint hum again. Not from the fridge. From the mirror. I walked to it. Lifted the sheet. My reflection was back. Breathing in time with me. Blinking. But not quite me. He looked like I used to look. Rested. Focused. He raised a hand and placed it on the glass. I felt the pressure on my chest. Not physical. Not heat or cold. Just gravity. A kind of pull. He mouthed something again. Different this time. Step in. I should have been afraid. But I wasn't. I think fear only works when you believe there's still a choice. I leaned in. Close enough to fog the glass. The reflection didn't match my breath. His fog lingered longer. I whispered, "What happens if I do?" He smiled. Behind me, I heard a knock. One soft knock. No footsteps. No voice. I didn't turn. In the reflection, the door opened. And a figure stepped inside.